Hello guys, today's episode is about specifically on dyslexia and how they take in information differently than people who are more neurotypical, who haven't got dyslexia. I'm really excited for this episode, guys. And if you please like this, please share, please subscribe, please do the thing to get this message out there to as many people as possible who need it. Take care, guys. Hope you enjoy today's episode. So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be? Or in other words, conquer their dyslexia. That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast. Hello guys, I hope you're doing alright. Today I want to talk about how dyslexia affects people taking in information, or more accurately put, how people with dyslexia take in information differently than non-dyslexics, or more accurately neurotypical people. Because the reason why I made this distinction between how dyslexia affects you taking in information, because I don't view dyslexia as a separate thing, as something else that's over there, something else, okay, like here's you, everything's fine apart from this thing, this neurodiverse different thing, this thing's not fine, this thing's like a different part of you and it's its own little box. I don't view dyslexia like that. I view having dyslexia is like as one part of you that's just as true as every other part of you. Someone with dyslexia, it's like how you becoming it. You are it, if that makes sense. And so basically that's what we're going to talk about today. And it's quite interesting because now me moving in basically my third day now in Thailand, in quarantine, me here by myself, in quarantine, wanting to teach kids English. And I went here, and yesterday I went and had my first English lesson, not English, Thai lesson, learning Thai, on this like Zoom call thing. And that was me and 6 or 7 other people from English speaking, they spoke English from different countries, all learning Thai, same position as I was. And the instructor, she was Thai. And she went through the slides way much more faster than my brain could take in. And everyone else was there saying, okay, I've got this, and asking questions and understanding it and moving on. And I'm just there looking like, what is going on here? At the start, I kind of kept up at the start, writing things down, but she kept on going. And so she would pull people out and ask, okay, how do you say this? How do you say that? And all these things you have to, but at the beginning and the end, it was all complex. Like, for example, they use different tones. And it's 5 different tones they use for meaning different things. They don't have past tense and present words like we do, like I ran, anyway. So she asked people questions. And it's one thing that she rehearsed with me was just I love you or something like that. Yeah, it was I love you, and rehearsed it, and I wrote it down. This is what we did at the beginning, and then about 20 minutes later, she asked me the same question: how do you say it? And of course, that was written on my notes 2, 3, 4 pages ago because I kept on writing things, and I didn't know. I got absolutely stuck. I'm like, what? How do I say this? And I didn't know at all. It's can you repeat it? If you repeat it, then I know how to do it, because me hearing something once and saying something, or me hearing something a couple times, wouldn't help me learn it enough so someone could say it and for me to repeat it. But with other people, because he was asking other questions, so how do you say this? How do you say that? How do you say it to all the other individuals? They were hitting them off all the time. But me, I was stuck there, not having a single clue what to say. And to be honest, I felt a little bit embarrassing. It felt like, oh God, this is hard, this is challenging. But the truth is, I knew it would be challenging. The truth is, I know it would be hard. Because, dyslexics, we find it hard to learn language. Because a big part of it is that a language is when you look at language, when you look at words, when you take in this sort of information, it's really hard to put pictures behind it. It's really hard to make it 3D, to make it real world. Because in a sense, it's all theoretical. You hear something and you try and learn it and you try and be able to use that in a situation. Now, in a classroom where someone's talking to you, a dyslexic person that's using our auditory processing, someone's talking to you, that's very hard for a dyslexic person to be able to learn through audio, basically learn through someone just talking to you without you actually applying or doing anything that you've learned. So I was struggling like that, and in a sense I knew I'd be struggling, because I remember when I was working in schools, and myself when I was in school, when I was working in school, we had like these French classes, teaching French. the other teachers knew what to do, because here's the thing, the teacher teaches it and I'm here helping kids, and as the teacher teaches it, you as like a member of staff in the lesson try to learn it faster than the kids learn it, so you can help the kids, because you don't learn it before the lesson, the teacher does, but you don't really. And so you're looking at, you're trying to learn it faster than the kids. I'd never ever had a single clue how to answer any French lesson, any French lessons, any French questions. I'll go to the kids who knew what they're doing more, or other members of staff, and ask them, what do you do? Or what's the answers? Because I have no clue. Because it's just learning auditory without doing stuff. So for me, I know a big strength, or a big way I learn, is listening to it and then repeating it out loud multiple times. Just like, this is the wrong notes. And, but like, how do you say something? I can't repeat it here, because I'm going over this morning, but I can't repeat it top of my head. It's written down somewhere. But for example, I'd say like the word, like the sentence, I love you, and repeat it back in Thai. I go, I love you, repeat it back in Thai. I love you, repeat it back in Thai. Do that multiple times, so my head can link one thing to the other thing, and then moving forward. And so I do repetition over like a short space of time, but verbally and auditory, and maybe visualizing it, doing some action, or eventually once I get hang of it, putting it in some sort of real world situations. So it's using all these different skills. But because I'm there with loads of other people who are not dyslexic, do not think the same thing, do not think in pictures, do not have a multi-sensory approach to things, approach where it's like singular sensory approach, auditory really, and they're going on a lot faster pace, I'm there stuck behind. So it's not no one's fault, but it's just how we operate differently. And because our brain likes working in a whole, 3D dimension, working with all our different senses at once and learning stuff in that way, learning in a way that's inefficient to us can cause a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort trying to listen to someone and take all of it in, because I'm trying to listen and write and do all this stuff. And for me, it takes almost, I was going to say 5 times as much, but it's almost like it's a lot more fatiguing for someone who is dyslexic to take in this sort of information. Because I think like over halfway through I got lost, and it was hard for me to focus. Because it's hard, because I took in information, but I wanted to re-go over the information so I know it before I move on. But she said at the end of the lesson, she was like, after like an hour and a half lesson, congratulations guys, we learnt 30 words. I'm saying I only learnt 2 words, and I forget them in 2 minutes. Because I can't learn that much in that sort of space of time, it's not learning. And that's how I would say, like, we take in information differently. We do. And if we're in a class, if we're in a situation, we want to take in information, and it's taught in a neurotypical way, which is what I'm experiencing here, is that there's a process that I've been going through today, I went through a bit tomorrow, that going through to help me learn something, to not have dyslexia stop me. Because I always have this saying, and it's becoming more and more true now, I'm in a very challenging environment, that I will not let my dyslexia stop me. And I really hope that you have installed that belief in yourself, saying, okay, I don't care what happens, this dyslexia thing will not stop me, I will not give up. So knowing this, okay, learning Thai, so I asked her, she wrote loads of things on a Word document before the end of the last session to, if I could take a photo, or if she could send me that little document. And so she sent it to me on email of all the words she wrote. as well as this big PowerPoint she was going through. And I spent about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours, going through that document and writing all of that document. Say, for example, the words. You know what I mean? Like, thank you means this means this, and all of the details or translations from English to Thai. Back on, I decided to write it on my phone. In my notes, should always have it with me. But I wrote this all down for the purpose of, I got like to page 13 or whatever. It took a while. But for the purpose, because I didn't learn it writing down once. I repeated it a couple of times, but I didn't learn it that one time. For the purpose of me doing that is that tomorrow when I get up, I'll go through it and I'll read it like I have this thing like I have 5 different words that I want to master, and I'll repeat that over and over and over again until I learn those words off by heart, and I'll add one new word to it each day. Okay, I have that, and the other big pages, hundreds, about 100 odd words, I think, are there. I'm going to read it once, and then each day I'm going to add one more word for the words I need to master, and then other words there. And now the reason why I'm doing this process, it's taken a lot of work, especially today. But over time it will become a habit, like a morning habit or like a little ritual I'm doing to get me better and better and better over time. Now the reason I'm doing this, and I want to incorporate other learning strategies as I go through this little method, and obviously the biggest thing is to use it. The more you use it, the better. I'm surrounded by loads of people, Thai people. I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, for God's sake. But every time I have a conversation with anyone, I try to include as much Thai as possible. And before I go up there, I go, okay, I want to include as much Thai as possible. How do I say thank you and goodbye and this and that and this and that? And I don't know because I can't remember. I go back to my notes. I go back to this. I go back to that and think, okay, this is how you say these things. Then I keep them in my head. Remember, say the things I want to say. And then that's how it's getting. Like, for example, a phone call down to reception to ask for whatever. And I force myself how to speak as much Thai as possible. Another little strategy for using it. But when it comes to learning, because obviously dyslexics struggle with taking in information. So when it comes to learning, there's 2 really fundamental strategies. It works for everyone with learning. And I use this very consciously in my life because I know the effect it has on my life. And these 2 strategies are 1, spaced repetition and memory recall. What are these? So spaced repetition is when I learn something and then have a gap and then learn it again. Because the reason why you have a gap, because you're learning, the idea of learning, okay, you're reading information and it takes it into your brain and your brain has to learn it, store it from short-term memory to long-term memory. That's like learning it. And so when you're reading this stuff, you don't learn it there and then. You rest, you sleep, you have a big break, and then your brain is still working on the stuff it learned and storing it into long-term memory. Because if you're shoving all this new stuff in, it's hard for it to actually get stored into the long-term stores. So you have to take a break. Because I wouldn't recommend, like for me, no more than learn something for half an hour a day. Because if I learn something for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 1, I'll get fatigued, and number 2, I'll forget most of what I've learned. So only small chunks. That's what I'm going to do, half an hour a day in the morning, go over it. I worked on a lot today just to write it down, but I'll go over it for about half an hour a day. That's the one thing, spatial repetition. And memory recall, the best way I can implement this is testing. So what memory recall is when you ask yourself a question and you have to come up with the answer. Like, for example, say, okay, how do you say thank you in Thai? Oh, I don't know. It's like hit. I'm trying to use my memory recall when I'm chatting to you now. It's hard. I'm not doing it because I don't want to make it wrong. I don't want to spend 5 minutes here like going through all my notes and stuff. But that's what memory recall is. It's like when you don't have the answer in front of you, but you have to search in your brain for the answer. And like the best way I have implemented this in the past, and what I might do now, what I might do in the future, is by testing myself. Okay, there's like these 10 phrases in English I want to say in Thai, and I should write all them down the other side. And if I get them wrong, okay, no, I get them wrong. It's something I need to practice. If I get them right, great. And for example, if I get them right 3 times in a row, I'll go, okay, that's good. Let's move on. Like 3 times in a row, 3 days in a row. But if I get like right, wrong, I have to keep doing it until I get 3 days in a row. I go, okay, I know that phrase. Let's move on. I go back to the phrase And like if I got it right 3 days in a row, but a month later I forgot it, I can go back to it, and those sort of things. But it's that sort of strategy, a systematic approach to learning. Because with this, obviously you have to be disciplined. Obviously you have to work hard. And working hard and being disciplined is what dyslexics really have in abundance. If we really take on the challenge, if we really try and watching, like, for example, people watching these videos, for example, people really taking the time and the effort to improve themselves, they would develop the discipline. They would develop because they want something more. They want something more than what they have right now. That's why you put in the work. That's why I put in the work to doing all that. And so that's the way we can not let our dyslexia stop us, and kind of overcoming this idea that dyslexics can't take in as much information as neurotypical people, and learning in a sense of learning in a very neurotypical way. Because at the moment I'm learning in a very neurotypical way on these classes, Zoom calls, or learning through audio, not through doing. But there's no other solution. The other solution is me, after the lesson, going through what they talked about and having putting in the strategy in place for me to go and learn this stuff systematically, and doing it day after day after day after day after day. Because I remember, so basically, a little story is that before I went here, I remember because there was this big course they were doing online for me, like TEFL course, teaching English to foreigners. And they were doing it online, and I said, "Oh, is there any special accommodations?" And they're like, "Oh, why do you need that?" I'm like, "Oh, because I'm dyslexic," and that sort of stuff. I go, "It's fine," but they took that very seriously. And then the guy found out, "Oh, you're dyslexic. Oh, how are you going to teach in a school?" And basically, he called up saying, "Can you spell the word elephant?" I'm like, "Oh, no." I'd be like, I might have trouble with that and that sort of stuff. Being completely honest. And now, because the first person who took on in the company that having this special circumstance, because funny enough, they never had another person dyslexic go on to teach English in another country. I wonder why, because it's hard, but because they're doing this whole new thing, they're saying, okay, let's assess you once you're in the country, once you're doing it. We're not going to put you in a school yet. Let's assess you, not in a paid position in a school. Let's assess you, let's put you in a classroom, let's do all this. And if we're happy with all this, we'll put you in a school. Which is different than what everyone else is doing. Because everyone else is going, okay, they know what school they're going in before they enter in the country. So that's why it's slightly different. If I had to go back in time, I would never say I'm dyslexic, just go on and prove to them that I can do it. But now, they kind of, in my head, I'm like, okay, you don't believe I can do it. I'm going to show you I can do it. So there's this big challenge of me really wanting to learn Thai, really wanting to learn everything I can learn, so I can prove them wrong. Because another thing I'm learning, and it's really hard, annoying, is all these different, grammar, all these different things like, nouns, verbs, this and that, and all these things that I've never ever liked, and and it's hard because I find it. My story is useless. You don't need to know this, but if I have to teach it, I have to know it, and I'm rehearsing this. I'm trying to go through all these other things, but yeah, it's complex and it's good. So guys, I want to make this little video here about, in a sense, it comes back to not having your dyslexia stop you, like making a decision, not having it stop you. And here's some strategies I'm using and things that I've learned to do this. Because some things, some things are hard, some things are challenging, but you don't let it stop you. And through the process of not letting stopping you, you're becoming a better, more stronger person than you'd ever have become otherwise. And then you become so grateful for having dyslexia because you're differently built and you're more proud than you'd ever be if you were neurotypical. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed today's little live podcast thing. I'll see you again soon.